You're not broke because you don't make enough money. You're broke because you're stuck in a level you don't even realize. And until you see it, nothing changes. In this video, I'm gonna break down the different stages so you can figure out exactly where you are. As you watch, comment below which level you're on. Let's start at the bottom. Level 1 is no control. This is where money comes in and disappears. You don't track anything. You don't really know how much you spend in a week, let alone a month. Bills get paid, sometimes late, sometimes on time, but there's no system behind it. Everything is reactive. You check your balance, you make a decision, and you move on. There's no plan, no structure, just guesswork. You might think you remember what you spent last Tuesday, but you don't. That coffee, that lunch, that thing you ordered online at midnight, it all blurs together. And by the end of the month, you're staring at your account wondering where it all went. This is the chaos level. And the worst part, you can't even diagnose the problem because you're not looking at the data. You're flying blind. If you've ever checked your account and felt confused, this is you. At this level, it's not even about income. You could double what you make and still stay here. Because the real problem isn't how much you earn, it's that you have no control over what happens after. I've seen people making 6 figures stuck right here. More money just means bigger leaks. Same lack of awareness, bigger numbers. Money isn't the problem. The lack of awareness is. If you're here, the fix is simple. Not easy, but simple. Start tracking. Every dollar, every transaction, not to judge yourself, just to see. Because you can't fix what you can't see. Level 2 is survival mode. Here you're covering your basic expenses, rent, food, transportation. On paper, it looks like you're doing fine, but in reality, you're always one step away from falling behind. One unexpected bill, one bad week, and everything starts to break. Your car needs a repair, your phone dies, your kid needs something for school, and suddenly you're borrowing, skipping payments, or putting things on credit just to stay afloat. You're not building anything here. You're just maintaining. You're running just fast enough to stay in place. There's no savings, no buffer, no room for error. Every month is a test, and that's the trap, because it feels responsible, but it leads nowhere. You're showing up. You're paying what you can. You're doing what you're supposed to do, but the math doesn't add up. The gap between what you make and what you need is too tight. This level wears you down, not all at once, but slowly. People stay here for years thinking the answer is just to work harder, get another shift, pick up a side gig, hustle more, and sometimes that helps. But if the structure underneath doesn't change, you're just running faster on the same treadmill. The real move here isn't just more income, it's margin. You need space between what comes in and what goes out. Even a little bit, because without that, you're one problem away from going backwards. You're not behind, you're just too close to zero. Level 3 is the paycheck trap. This is where most people get stuck. You get paid, you feel relief, and then it's gone. Bills, subscriptions, small spending decisions that don't feel important in the moment, but together, they reset you back to zero, and the cycle repeats every 2 weeks like clockwork. Money hits your account, and for about 48 hours, you feel fine. You're caught up, you can breathe. Maybe you grab takeout, maybe you buy something you've been waiting on. It doesn't feel reckless, it feels like you earned it. But then the bills clear, the rent clears, the car payment, the insurance, the subscriptions you forgot you had. And by day 3 or 4, you're back where you started, waiting for the next one. That's not income, that's dependency. You might even be making more money now than you did a few years ago, but somehow nothing really changed. That's because your system didn't change. You got a raise and your rent went up. You started making more, so you upgraded your lifestyle just enough to keep you in the exact same position. New job, same stress, different numbers, same life. This is the level that tricks people into thinking they're doing okay, because you're not missing payments. You're not drowning. You're just stuck. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Getting out of this level is boring. There's nothing exciting about tracking your spending, cutting things out, or being intentional with your money. It's repetitive, it's unsexy. No one's going to applaud you for canceling subscriptions or meal prepping instead of ordering delivery. There's no highlight reel for choosing not to spend. But that's exactly what works. It's the small, unsexy decisions compounded over time, saying no when it doesn't matter, so you can say yes when it does. Most people know what to do here. They just don't do it. Because it requires delayed gratification. It requires you to feel the gap between where you are and where you want to be and sit in it. And if this is hitting a little too close to home, make sure you're subscribed, because this is the level where most people stay for years, and everything I post here is about getting out of it. The paycheck trap isn't a math problem, it's a behavior problem, and behavior only changes when you get tired of the same results. Level 4 is the illusion. This is where things start to look better, but aren't. You're making more money. Your lifestyle improves. Maybe you upgraded your apartment, your car, your day-to-day life. From the outside, it looks like progress. It feels like progress. You're not stressed about rent anymore. You can afford nicer things. You go out without checking your account first. People see you doing well, but behind the scenes, nothing fundamentally changed. Your expenses grew with your income. Your habits stayed the same. You're still dependent on the next paycheck, just at a higher level. You didn't fix the problem. You just made it more comfortable. And comfort is what keeps people stuck the longest. This is the most dangerous level, not because it's the worst financially, but because it doesn't feel like a problem. You're not broke in the obvious sense. You have money coming in. You're living a decent life. You might even have some things you used to dream about. But if the income stopped, everything would fall apart in 60 days, maybe 90 if you stretched it, because you're still living at the edge of what you make. You're just doing it with better stuff. The car payment is bigger, the rent is higher, the vacations are nicer, but the dependency is the same. This is where people rationalize. They tell themselves they deserve it, they worked hard to get here, and that's true, they did. But deserving something and being able to afford it are two different things. And the real cost isn't just financial, it's the loss of options. You can't leave the job you hate because you need the paycheck. You can't take a risk because your overhead is too high. You're locked in, not because you have to be, but because your lifestyle says you do. The illusion convinces you that you've already made it out. So you stop trying to improve, you stop being intentional, you coast, and that's exactly how people end up here for decades, making good money, looking successful, and still living paycheck to paycheck. The fix here is harder than the earlier levels because it requires you to downgrade, to pull back, to admit that what looked like progress was just a nicer version of the same trap. And most people won't do it. The ego won't let them. Level 5 is the escape. This is where things finally start to shift. For the first time, you have control. You know where your money is going. You're making decisions ahead of time instead of reacting after the fact. There's space now, maybe not a lot, but enough to breathe, enough to think beyond just getting through the month. You have a buffer. A month of expenses saved, maybe 2, and that changes everything. Not because of the dollar amount, but because of what it represents. Freedom. The freedom to think, to plan, to make decisions based on what you want, not just what you can afford right now. This is where the cycle starts to break, where money stops controlling you and you start controlling it. You're no longer guessing. You have a system. You know what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left over. And that leftover, that's where the future lives. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't the finish line. This is where the real work begins. This is where most people quit because it stops being exciting. So be frank with yourself. If you don't build discipline here, you fall back into the same patterns because escaping being broke doesn't automatically make you wealthy. It just gives you the opportunity to start. Now, it's on you what you build from here. This is the foundation, the baseline, the minimum required to even play the next game. Most people celebrate getting here and then stop. They think they've arrived. But all you've done is create stability. And stability is not the same as wealth. Wealth is what happens when you take this foundation and build on it. When you start thinking about assets, investments, systems that work without you, the escape is where you prove to yourself that you can do the boring stuff, that you can delay gratification, that you can make intentional decisions consistently over time. And once you prove that, you're ready for the next level, the one where money works for you instead of the other way around. Most people will hear this and do nothing. Don't be that person. Now, you understand why so many people stay stuck. Not because they don't try, but because they never see the level they're in. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you reach the escape, you're no longer trying to survive. You're stepping into a completely different game, building wealth. And if you want to understand how that actually works, click the video on your screen right now, and I'll break it down step by step. Do the boring stuff, it works.